Murray to Rory Best. It's Lavanini who makes the tackle, 6'7" second row forward. Johnny Sexton's got plenty of height on that. Time for the chasers to get there. Brilliantly taken by Tucalet, the Argentine fullback. That was fabulous stuff. And I hear Sanchez steps inside Luke Marshall. Brilliant footwork by Sanchez. He's got Montero. Is Montero going to show us why they're so excited about this kid? What a finish by Montero.
That is a world-class finish.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Rouge Rugby podcast. My name is Dan Murphy, and with me always is Derek Brissett and Stu Hardy. Gentlemen, we had a little bit of time off. You know, in Canada, we had a long weekend last week, so we took some time off to enjoy a little fun in the sun and then relaxation. Before we get into it and we kind of see how you guys have been relaxing and stuff like that, I want to kind of just let everyone know that we are now going to be on YouTube. Our YouTube channel is Rouge Rugby. So if you prefer the viewing pleasure of seeing all of us handsome gentlemen on your computer screens or TV screens or whatever you're going to watch us on, we will be uploading our latest podcast up on there, and then eventually we'll get our previous podcasts up there from the past. So look forward to seeing more videos on our YouTube channel. Now, gentlemen, the first thing we're going to talk about is the incredible game that was on a Friday night. The Leafs won a big game, and I didn't know they actually won it. I had no idea.
Yeah, like this is we kind of talked about this earlier. I mean, yeah, how did you, like, what happened? How did you go 2 days without knowing like the result? Because you just got back from the cottage today, Sunday. So we're recording this just before game 5, so we have no idea what happens in game 5 right now. But like, how did you not know?
So the first thing is that my where the campsite is, there's no internet. So any score updates, TSN, Sportsnet, I didn't have any of that. We're lucky enough that our neighbor has satellite and they hooked us up with that. So we were watching the game and it was brutal, and I personally was taking it personally. And there was I think it was like right after the 3-0 goal. There was like maybe like 6 minutes left in the game. I looked at my wife and my parents and I'm like, I'm done. Like, put something else on. I'm going to bed. Because it was a later game. It started at 8 o'clock. And when you got an almost 2-year-old, friggin' 10:30, 11 o'clock is bloody late. So I said, I'm going to bed. Screw this. I went and played a little bit of Smash Bros on my Switch and went to bed. And we all woke up because no one else watched it. We all woke up and like came to terms with the fact that the Leafs season was over. And so I spent about 12 hours just coming to terms with it. I'm like, all right, who am I going to cheer for now? Vancouver? Yeah, sure. My wife likes the Hurricanes. Yeah, they're fun. They look like they got a little pep in their step. And it was like after supper, they were starting to put my daughter down, and I'm just sitting down because my dad's a big golfer, so the PGA Championship was happening. So they were doing like a quick like SportsCenter update, and then I switched to SportsCenter or something like that, and then I saw an ad for Columbus versus the Leafs on Sunday night. I'm like, oh, that's weird that they haven't they didn't fix that info. Like, they didn't fix that little graphic. That's a weird thing for Sportsnet like to mess up. And then they actually start talking about it, and they're like, oh, well, this game decides who moves on. And then they're like, oh, and for the loser, it's not too bad because then the next night's the draft lottery. And then I like froze for a second, and I bolted to the trailer where they're getting her ready. And I'm like, the Leafs won. And they're like, my wife thought I was like high or like I hit my head. And she's like, no, sweetie, they did not. And I'm like, yeah, I just saw it. And so we spent the next 3 hours, which is incredible to think about when like sports channels always have highlight shows or like, you know, showing the replays of games. We spent 4 hours trying to figure out if someone was messing with us and trying to find the actual like scores of the game or the highlights or anything like that. We even like watched one of the games, it was the Tampa versus Philly game, and they did not talk about it at all. And it wasn't until 10:30 that night where I actually got to see that someone talk about it and show all the goals. I thought it was a cruel joke until 10:30 last night, and then this morning I went golfing with my dad, and the golf course had cell service, and I finally was able to like confirm everything and check everything out, and just absolutely bananas.
So, Stu, are we judging Dan's fandom and passion here for bailing on his team before the game was over?
No, I think, especially after the previous night where the Leafs were 3-0 up and lost that game, because I was working at the time and I was getting text updates. So I get a buzz on my phone. It's like, oh, Columbus won, have scored a goal. I'm like, okay, still plenty of game to go. And then another buzz, and it's like, okay, 2-0, nothing great. And then before I even put the phone down, I get another buzz. Oh, it's 3-0 now. I'm like, okay, so this is what it's like to be a Leafs fan.
Yeah, except we get to experience elation after. Yeah, I think.
Yeah,
it was funny because it's like my girlfriend's a Habs fan, so she was spending the entire game just making fun of me.
I'll just tap dancing on the grave.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Just tap dancing on the grave, exactly. And then Columbus made it 3-0, and I was like all sad, but I was like still there, sending some angry tweets that became outdated super fast.
I saw that.
And then, so I was just watching, and so my girlfriend goes upstairs for a bit, and like, whatever it would have been in real time, let's say 5 to 10 minutes later, I just start screaming, and she like runs back down the stairs. She's just like, what happened? Like, are you okay? And I'm like, looked at her, I'm like, they tied the game. It's like, and she was like, no, they didn't. And I'm like, no, yeah, they tied the game. And then she was like so mad, and she left and wouldn't watch overtime until she determined how that went based on my reaction. So it's kind of funny. Man, that was a crazy game.
well, that's the thing, because I got a buzz on my phone, and then I immediately get 2 more buzzes. And it said, like, oh, Toronto scored. It's like, okay, they scored 1 goal, and now it's just come through, like, late, so they're doing it. And no, it's 3-3. And it was like, is someone playing a trick on me? Is this a reverse of last night?
How is that possible? Imagine seeing that 24 hours later. Imagine finding that out.
I can't believe you went 24 hours without knowing who won that hockey game. Oh my God, that is hilarious. That's just too funny. I can't believe you didn't know. That's just,
it hurts.
It blows my mind. There's still parts of the world that you can't get that internet access, and what do you know?
No.
But you know what? People are gonna see this episode after Game 5. I'm saying the comeback means nothing unless they win tonight. So
I think they're going to be full of piss and vinegar. I think they're going to be full of piss and vinegar. I think that Columbus thought that they had it. I mean, it's going to be the exact same effect that happened on the Thursday night game on the Friday, and hopefully Toronto won't do what Columbus did and give up that lead. I mean, it's in their MO. It's definitely something that they're used to doing, especially in Game 7s. So we'll see what happens tonight. But you know what, guys? Let's get into actual, what this podcast is about. Let's dive into some rugby news finally. And the other Toronto team, the Arrows have been busy little beavers. They had another batch of signings last week. They had a couple really key signings, and then one that was a new player coming to the team. And we've been, and Derek and a bunch of other guys have been kind of hinting at this international winger. This guy that's been, going to be replacing Dan Moore essentially with the starting spot, Manuel Montero. And Derek, give us a little bit of a sneak peek of what we should expect from Montero.
Yeah, so Manuel Montero's got 27 caps for the Pumas, got 16 tries within those matches. His career kind of got off to just a mind-boggling start. He was on just a torrent strike rate to start his career. He had 13 tries in 15 matches. That got up to 14 tries in 21. And then, his career kind of got sidelined with some injuries. He wasn't able to compete at the 2015 Rugby World Cup for the Pumas as a result of those really bad knee injuries. And then, when he tried to kind of come back from those injuries, his production kind of, went downhill a little bit. So he kind of has ended, or as it stands right now, he has 16 tries at 27 matches for the Pumas. And he also, he has a try and 7 appearances for the Jaguars in Super Rugby as well. Ultimately, what you're kind of looking at is an absolutely massive human being. He is 6'4", 240. I've seen some websites have his weight listed as even higher. I've seen like 250. So somewhere in between there. So he's like absolutely huge. He possesses like an unreal sidestep, but with that size, like he can just as easily run straight through you if he decided to have the mind to do it. The Toronto Arrows, as well as various other members of the media, have been sharing highlights of Manuel Montero since the signing was announced, and a lot of them are just like, yes, 2 guys came to try to tackle him, and he just kind of brushes them off and goes and scores. So that's sort of the player that you're kind of getting, a guy that's kind of, in that, I guess, Jonah Lomu-esque school of being a winger, where it's, you're either going to burn them with the speed, you can burn them with the sidestep, or you can just run right through them. So like me and Stu kind of talked about it when we did our episode on Dan Moore's retirement. The tough thing to replace Dan Moore was always going to be like the leadership and the off-field aspect of what Dan Moore brought to the Toronto Arrows. But if you're looking for a winger to replace his on-field ability, Manuel Montero is an unreal pickup.
Very similar to another Argentinian winger that was signed last year, and we got to see a little bit of him. Julian Dominguez, who signed with NOLA, very similar style of playing, and both internationally capped by the Sevens program as well. So very interesting. Stu, Montero's got a little bit of pedigree to him. Being able to say that I played in the Rugby Championship, to say that I played in Super Rugby, and he's one of the only players in the league. There's a few Southern American players that say that I played in SLAR and MLR. So he's got a resume to add to bring the Arrows. What is that?
His one game in SLAR.
Well, I mean, that's
the one
not
game
his
that
fault.
everybody got to play down there.
That's not his fault. That's COVID's fault. But that still goes on the resume. But what does this all mean? We're talking about replacing someone that's been, he was the heart and soul of the team. So this is a pretty big get.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when talking about and contrasting experiences, so Dan Moore obviously had the experience of not only championship rugby with Yorkshire Carnegie, but he also had the knowledge of like the school system. He played in the varsity match at Twickenham, and he does have international experience as well. However, it seems that Manuel Montero's experience is significantly greater. I know one of the videos that has been posted was him beating Johnny Sexton when Argentina played Ireland a few years ago, which I knew may have rubbed a few Irish Arrows fans the wrong way. He was like, am I happy about, am I okay with it? Am I not? But obviously, playing for the Pumas, playing for a tier 1 nation, even if it was a few years ago, is still fantastic experience to bring to the team. And I don't see him being one of these like player coach roles that may have been discussed with some of the other new signings. I can definitely see him making his way into like the starting 15, or becoming like, especially if he's going through someone, there's the definition of an impact sub. But I think this is a fantastic get for the Arrows and for MLR in general.
So that actually is kind of like what Stu kind of touched on there. Like, where do you actually think Montero is going to slot into the lineup, especially looking at like the outside backs for the Arrows? It's a lot of South American flavor on the squad now. Basically, if you had to pick if you're picking the Arrows starting lineup for the first game of the season in February, who's your 11, 14, 15 right now?
That is interesting, because there's now depth in the backs that you could say that any one of the signees for the 2021 season could automatically make the first 15. So it's like, who do you want on the bench? Who are you not going to give a slot to? So I think it's obviously going to be like pre-training. We're going to find if Juan Cruz Gonzalez is better suited at a 10 or a 15 position with the arrows, and then it'll be either him or Taylor Adams as the fullback slot for wingers. Though I'll say Manuel Montero as 14, and I'm going to probably say Giuseppe Trois as
winger.
Yeah, I mean, I know he's more of a center, but
He is a center. He is a center,
but also I think that I just really want to say Giuseppe Trois, or is evil alter ego Giuseppe Dutoy instead.
Freeze for a second. I got a whole lot of flack for saying Spencer Jones should play on the wing.
Yeah,
I feel like Stu's not getting enough flack from Derek. All right.
Yeah, I was gonna let him finish and then be like, well, like, who are your centers at this point? Because maybe he has some genius masterstroke of like Gaston Mirez plays center instead of the position where he's internationally renowned to be playing.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say Gaston Mirez, and I'm looking at the list, and I may have like slipped because I was like, was I going to say Gaston Cortez? Because I think Gaston Cortez on the wing would have been an interesting decision, but
Stu's just putting the lineup through the blender. Just see what comes.
Yeah, all the backs are forwards, all the forwards are backs. It's a growth team growth exercise. You can understand all the players. Ever since I've seen oh my God, Johnny May try and join the scrum for England one time. I'm just saying that if everyone needs to understand other players' positions.
You know what? So, next week, what we'll do is we will do a all front row lineup from MLR.
All front row lineup.
All front row. Every position has to be a front row player. I'll even say you might be able to pick some international cap players and we'll do a limit. But I think that's what we'll do next week.
Okay, but for real, my backline would probably be Gaston Mirez, Manuel Montero, and then either Taylor Adams or Gonzalez, whichever. Because for those two at the moment, obviously, I've seen like highlights of Gonzalez, but I've also seen Tyler Adams play as 10, and then like move back to 15, but only for like 5 or 10 minutes of a game. So I think preseason's going to be very interesting for the Arrows. Yeah.
I think if I were looking to predict, Giuseppe Dutoy will be a center. That's my bold prediction for that.
Boo. Same old.
But yeah, so he's going to be a center. But then I think my outside backs, I would probably go with, I think I'm going to have Montero 11, Gaston Mirez at 14, then maybe Gonzalez at 15. The interesting thing is, like, I kind of feel like it kind of comes down to what you want on your bench more than anything, right? Like, because you could easily do, I think, Montero, Levis at 14 and then Mirez at 15 and give yourself a guy on the bench like Gonzalez that can slot into fly half or fullback if needed. Same with maybe Mirez. Mirez can play wing and fullback as well. Montero and Levis don't really play fullback. So I feel like maybe it kind of comes down to what you want on your bench. I think if you were to look at the lineup right now, look at it ahead of time, I think Taylor Adams is going to be the fly half. His, I guess, backup in a way will be Will Kelly. That's just the way I see it at this point in time, if I were to handicap the depth chart. But there's certainly, like, it's one of those things where it's like you kind of look at it right now and it's like there is a lot of options for Mark Winokur, Chris Silverthorne, and, to kind of come up with this lineup, especially, when you have guys like Adams or Gonzalez or Mirez that can kind of slot into a couple positions. If Stu's running the team, you can have Dutoy slotting into a couple different positions too. But or maybe Gaston Cortez coming to the backs, who knows? But it'll there's a lot of options. Ultimately, no matter what, there is a lot of options there. So it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of South American flavor in that back three, though. But we also haven't even talked about one of their fullbacks that also got re-signed. We haven't touched on any of the re-signings yet. So we'll get to that, unless, Dan, if you have care to add who you think will be in the 11, 14, and 15 jersey.
Yeah,
don't say Spencer Jones again.
No, I think that Spencer
not?
Jones will play a very important role coming off the bench. I think that, but I like that he can slot in anywhere, I think. But I agree with you guys. I think that Montero and Leivas both play a very hard running style of rugby, kind of run straight through you, and I think that you need a distributor like Mieres, and he's got such impressive footwork. We saw that against the Glendale Raptors in 2019 in that Ruck Cancer game, and I think that he will be my 11, and then Gonzalez at 15 and 14. The only interesting thing I have to point out, and it's with Taylor Adams, is we're going to talk about the scrum half that was signed in this batch, but there's also a possibility that Taylor Adams might also want to play 9, because that was something that he played with Melbourne, and he also did that a little bit with the Junior All Blacks. Like, he covered both with both those teams. That's also a possibility as well.
I mean, I think, I don't think Adams playing 9. Like, I guess in the event of catastrophically 3 to 4 injuries to the other scrum halves, I mean,
at this point we only have one scrum half, right?
Officially, yeah, there's only one scrum half.
But I feel
like that's going to change, though. I feel like the Arrows might be signing more than one scrum half before the end.
Well,
of the
until
season.
I hear anything from Brock or that Twitter account, I'm going with
they only have one scrum half.
We only have one scrum half right now.
No,
in my hypothetical lineup.
Yeah, there we go. It's lots of crazy hypothetical lineup situations being thrown out here on this episode, but
mine is not as crazy as Stu's. All right, I tossed my crazy out months ago.
Yeah, that's true. I think, I think Adams is going to be the fly half. I mean, I suppose, in the event of having a catastrophic amount of injuries or just a stroke of absolute bad luck, I mean, you would definitely probably look at it as an option. Like, if he's played it before, I'm sure you wouldn't shy away from it. But I think ideally, if you were going with an everybody's healthy lineup, Taylor Adams is going to be your 10.
For sure. Well, you know what? One of those guys that was signed, and he's been sharing the 9 jersey with Jimmy McKenzie. Andrew Ferguson was one of the re-signed players. We also have Lucas Rumball, Andrew Quattrin, and the fullback that Derek mentioned, Shawn Windsor, was also re-signed. Now, gentlemen, Lucas Rumball was the vice captain and also the first official Arrows captain to walk out with the team in their first game against NOLA way back in what seems like forever long ago. All these guys, Quattrin, Ferguson, Rumball, and even Windsor to a certain extent when they had their first 3 months of the season, all have played pivotal roles. And I mean, Quattrin's one of the players that really shone and grew once he put the Arrows jersey on. So, what do these guys kind of say to you and kind of ease your mind in terms of, developing this team?
I'll say the consistency is obviously a great thing to have. As you said, Lucas Rumball was the first captain, and then obviously ARC duties and injury put him to the side for most of 2019. He had a fantastic try against Seattle, a try which, if it was played today, would no longer be legal, but it is what it is.
It's legal when it happened. That's all that matters.
Andrew Quattrin as well. I think there's a great section of the Arrows fan base that has a great affinity for Q and his illustrious hair. Then Ferguson and Windsor. Now, I know Windsor didn't start or play in any of the games of the 2020 season, but as I've seen you post on Twitter, Derek, that he is one of these fantastic players for the Arrows, and it's the case of one of the big games he did play for was against Austin when that game was rescheduled to a Thursday night, and only a few hundred fans could make that game. But some of his offloads and his playing was fantastic. And I think what it really builds to is that we're talking about Taylor Adams, we're talking about Gonzalez as these world-class 10s that we're great to have. But Windsor is a great 10 to have as well. The only issue I would find is I wouldn't want to play him against Houston just because they have Sam Windsor, and I know I'm going to get the names mixed up at some point.
Yeah, I think it is great to, honestly, it's great to see just in general so many of the Arrows being re-signed once again. They had the highest retention rate last year, had between 2019 and 2020, and it looks like they're going to be like, we'll see what happens when it's all said and done, when training camp actually starts among all the teams, but it looks like they're well on track to, be in the same boat as last year. Obviously there's a couple benefits to that. Obviously there's the on-field benefits where it's like you have guys that are used to the coaching system that they want to implement, the way they want to play, the style of game that they want to bring to the pitch week in and week out, and just the chemistry that you can build up just by playing with the same guys week in, week out, and doing all of that. But the other thing too is I think it really helps with like marketing, just marketing your franchise in general, right? When it's, unfortunately, I guess selfishly or whatever you want to really say, Dan Moore is retiring. So you need to kind of bring new faces of the franchise to the fold. And, being able to retain a lot of your players, it gives fans, whether they be passionate diehard fans that have followed Major League Rugby even before it started, or people that just jumped in on the ground floor when the Toronto Arrows were announced, or brand new fans that are, will be watching rugby for the first time in 2021. It's good to be able to kind of go back and be like, Rumball's been a star player the entire time, or, Quattrin's been good for the history of the franchise. Ferguson's been around, Windsor's been around, going back to all the previous guys that they have been re-signed. And I think that just kind of helps with the recognition and everything. Keep the same name, keep the same logo, keep the same colors, try to keep as many of the same players just because it helps the brand recognition. And, Rumball will kind of be one of the guys that's at the forefront of that. Like Dan said, he's already captained the team. He was the original captain of the team. When you really kind of look through it or whatever, I guess technically the Arrows lost two of the three guys that have captained their squad during this offseason with Sam Malcolm and Dan Moore both heading out. Malcolm captained one game in 2019, becoming the first non-Canadian captain of the Arrows. But yeah, I think Rumball is going to be the guy that's going to kind of be looked at to be kind of that face of the franchise, and as well as the guy that's probably going to have to do some of the work to make up for just Dan Moore's presence that is now absent from the Arrows locker room. But I think, off on the pitch though, there's obviously these are four super key players. Stu, you kind of touched on what Sam Windsor did in 2019 there. There was a lot of Arrows that were gone to the ARC. The Arrows were probably the hardest hit team from the America's Rugby Championship as far as percentage of their roster that was unavailable to them. And Windsor stepped up huge in that first half of the season, especially prior to guys like Pat Parfrey joining the team when, Sam Malcolm was the only fly half on the roster. And it was the game against Houston when Sam Malcolm did get hurt and had to leave the game with a brief ankle injury that didn't really impact the rest of his season all that much, but he had to be taken out of that game. Windsor was the guy that came in to replace Malcolm at fly half. They played admirably and they won that game. So, he's maybe not the most popular player, but he's probably one of the more underappreciated guys on the Arrows roster. Ferguson, like you said, I think he's a solid scrum half, does really well to get a lot of quick ball for the Arrows. He had 6 tries in 2019. A lot of them were kind of in that sneaky, I'm going to catch this team sleeping with a quick tap off a penalty kind of manner, which is great to have a scrum half that kind of has that sense for the game that you're able to, exploit defenses that are, kind of falling asleep at the wheel or just, when they think there's a stoppage of play. Quattrin, key cog, and basically the Arrows set piece is a big reason why the Arrows are so good. And, Quattrin brings that. He's obviously the guy that throws the ball into the line out, Arrows line out at 87.3%, with De La Vega second in the league with line-out takes. So that was super effective. Obviously, the scrum with Quattrin as part of the front row was also incredibly effective and dominant throughout the year. Best scrum in the league. And, he was solid. Lucas Rumball, though, is probably, I still think he's probably one of the best players in Canada at this point in time. And, he had 69 tackles this year, which was tied for 5th. There was a handful of other guys that were kind of around that. It's a big tie. So he had 69 tackles, 94.5% completion, 3 breakdown steals, which was 3rd in the league behind Cam Dolan and Mo Abdelmanem. He had 29 carries, 94 meters. The try that, as Stu pointed out, would technically not be legal, but it was legal when it mattered. And he also added 4 line-out takes to it. I think one of the other things that he kind of brings to is just an incredible work rate. And, his maul defense, as we kind of saw in that game against Houston too, is impeccable, man. Like, even with Shepard and De La Vega both sent off due to cards, like, so you have like the shorthanded pack for the line out, and Rumball was able to swim through and get a hold of the ball to preserve the win there. So, this is another solid Unreal group of signings. And then, it's Montero's the guy that you kind of get excited about, I think, because he's the new guy. But, it's great to see such key pieces of the team returning. And Shawn Windsor, too, I guess that side note is he is the head coach of Brock University now, which I guess will be interesting to kind of see. Like, I don't know, I haven't spoken to him, or I haven't really, so I don't really know what exactly the university programs are going to be doing this, considering they don't have games to be playing, but he will be splitting his time between his duties coaching Brock and playing for the Toronto Arrows. So that's also something to kind of look forward to. So there's another, like, as Stu kind of mentioned, it's like there's some guys that are kind of becoming like sort of quasi player coaches for the team. So, Brock's program has, improved immensely over the last couple of years with Windsor as part of that staff. And now he's getting the promotion to the big job too. So, he definitely knows what he's doing as far as coaching. So even if he's not in the lineup, I'm sure he's going to be lending a big hand to the team anyways.
I think it was Andrew Ferguson that said that, he's one of the best guys have with the team because he's just so approachable and, so useful as a teammate. And I think that Ferguson himself is someone that is extremely useful to the team. And, Jamie McKenzie has dealt with injuries, and also he was gone with the ARC. So Ferguson has had to kind of hop in and out of lineup or out of the starting position. And he's had to be, the ultimate teammate, and then kind of take his knocks when he's told to sit on the bench or not play the game. And I think that's something that needs to kind of be celebrated. And I think that he is going to have a very interesting World Cup cycle. Everyone's kind of talking about Will Persilier with the rest of our scrum halves kind of aging out. Jamie McKenzie, Gordon McRory, Phil Max retired. There's now a pecking order that needs to be established. And I think that, with this young buck kind of, snapping at his heels, and Persilier was recently named the young men player of the year. I think Ferguson has to prove that where he stands out and have a good next season with the Arrows and try to get back in the graces of selectors and Kingsley Jones, because he really hasn't had a whole lot of chances post repechage and in 2018. So hopefully he'll have a good season, because I'm looking forward to seeing that. Other Canadians that are looking to either continue or start their relationship again with Rugby Canada have found homes in MLR. One of my favorite players in MLR, Doug Fraser, re-signed with Old Glory DC with a 2-year deal. I'm excited to see him back with the guys down in the Washington area. Mo Abdelmanem re-signed with the Gilgronis. He has just been someone that, this podcast has loved to watch, and it is a damn shame that he hasn't gotten a cap yet. So hopefully with that cream and orange, I think that's what they describe their jerseys as. Hopefully he'll get.
Is it cream? Is that the official Gilgronis orange tone?
I thought that's.
Are you telling me that their alternate kit is cream and not white? Because it looks pretty white in the Texan
I
sun.
was thinking more like the actual orange ones. It looks a little creamy, does it not? Or am I just thinking every time I see them, I think of an orange creamsicle, and that's where my brain goes? Maybe that's it.
Possibly.
You know what? It wouldn't surprise me though, man. Like I've seen, like I think it's always kind of one of those fun things that I've enjoyed is seeing like what professional sports teams actually call their colors, because like they have to like kind of copyright the color tone, and it's like
Right.
the funniest ones is like I guess most recently the Seattle Kraken in the NHL expansion team there, they all kind of brought up like their New Jersey release, and they have like a different name for every individual shade of blue that they have on their jersey.
Deep
it's like
sea
ice
blue.
Yeah, deep sea blue, ice blue. The funniest one I think I've ever come across was you remember those like old like Los Angeles Kings jerseys that are purple,
Oh yeah.
right? It's like well, they're not purple, they're actually forum blue, which I'm like, yeah, that's the name of the color. It's amazing. Forum blue. It's purple, but it's forum. Yeah, I don't know. So it wouldn't surprise me if Austin does call this cream, but this is just a tangent now.
Yeah. Well, I think the idea of seeing Mo Abdelmonem play, instead of playing in orange and cream, we'll be playing in red and white, or black and red and white. Whatever Canada's colors are going to be with Macron. But yeah.
Yeah, I love Abdelmonem, man. I think he's one of the most, maybe not the most underrated player in the league, but certainly one of them. He's in the conversation, I think. He's so underrated that his own team didn't even start him for the first 2 games of the season. So like that kind of Mick Byrne he figured it out eventually and started putting Abdelmonem in the lineup, playing the full 80 minutes of the last 3 games. So yeah, he's second in the league in breakdown steals. Like he's just like one of those guys that's just like elite at like a specific thing that you can do on a rugby pitch. So yeah, 5 steals. He trailed only Cam Dolan of NOLA, who had 6 all year. The interesting thing,
a human giraffe.
Yeah,
Cam Dolan's just a human giraffe.
Cam Dolan's a monster. He's like, he's a monster. But here's the thing that I kind of find interesting though, is like you said, it's like Abdelmonem is kind of underrated, so he hasn't seen as much playing time as like. Okay, so if you look at the top 5, and I'm saying the top 5, kind of like air quoting it here, just because it's not actually 5 guys, because the season was super short and there's got a bunch of dudes tied at 3, basically. So you have Cam Dolan, Mo Abdelmonem, Jamison Fanana-Schultz, Lucas Rumball, and Nate Brakely are your top 5, right? Who have all played significantly more minutes than Abdelmonem. And so Abdelmonem's within the top 5, and he actually has, with the exception of what do we got? We got Chance Wingluski and Pele Cowley, who only played 1 game, but he had 2 breakdown steals. Right. So it's like, with the exception of them, it's like the remaining guys that factor into the top 10, whether they're tied or not. Abdelmonem's played the least amount of minutes of all of them. He's played 113 less minutes than Dolan. So Dolan needed the extra 113 minutes to pick up just 1 extra lineout steal, 1 extra breakdown steal. Fanana-Schultz has played an extra 46 minutes, and he's sitting at 3. So like Abdelmonem's got 2 more steals than him in 46 less minutes. Lucas Rumball's played 73 more minutes than Mo, and Nate Brakely has also played 113 more minutes. And Brakely, again, he has 3 steals. So it's like he's racking up a ton of breakdown steals, but also kind of in a lot less time than, say, some of the other guys that are at the top of the breakdown steals table. So he's making the most of the minutes that he is getting, and that's probably, man, it's one of those things too. It's a shame that COVID canceled the season, right? Because it's like he probably could have definitely increased his stock as far as going on the Canadian national team, because he has been shining, especially in that breakdown role. The one thing though I kind of did notice, like looking at his stats. So he played his 287 minutes. He had 21 carries, 90 meters. Within that, made 2 offloads. Like I said, the 5 breakdown steals is kind of his big stat that sticks out. Is because he's just amazing at doing that one specific thing. But he made 48 tackles at 82%. So he had 10 missed tackles this year. So 10 missed tackles in 5 games. You kind of you kind of want to see that number come down and see that percentage of tackle completion go up. So if you got to critique the game a little bit, that would be the area that I think you kind of go at. But I think I'm super excited to see that he's re-signed in Austin, and hope he kind of continues to thrive, and hopefully going into the next season, he can kind of solidify himself as one of the starters for the Gilgronis.
One interesting signing that that kind of happened last week was Henry Stevenson from Ontario signs with the Dallas Jackals. He was one of the 30 Canadians that sent their intent in to MLR at the draft. So, a young guy, has had some U20 Canada experience and a lot of sevens experience, which is when you look at his highlight reel, you just see this giant lock running in sevens. It is so fun to watch. We don't have enough locks playing in sevens, so don't ever tell anyone that you're not fast enough. Do it. But, it's an interesting signing because, didn't actually play at the trophy tournament, did the European tour with the U20 team and got to play some, big minutes. So exciting to see another young guy from Canada sign an MLR.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to see, I guess, some of the American teams, or I guess, I'm not really sure how he qualifies for an American visa. Maybe the fact that he has played on the U20 team, despite, as you kind of mentioned, Dan, he didn't get to play in the trophy and stuff, but he's been on the team. I don't know if that maybe helps him. He did represent Ontario when they played that exhibition game against Old Glory DC. Although Old Glory DC didn't really have what would become their MLR roster really in place for that game. There's a handful of guys on that team that didn't quite make it. But so like maybe that helps, maybe because he's already played MLR. I'm not really sure, to be perfectly honest with you. But regardless of what it is, I'm really excited to see more Canadian. I'm excited to see more Canadians ending up with shots on on the American teams in MLR, like we kind of alluded to a little bit earlier when we were touching on Windsor being the head coach of Brock. There is going to be no university rugby, or at least as of right now, there is no university rugby in Canada next year. So if you are some of those guys that it's like maybe you do take a shot, go play professional rugby south of the border, make some money, and then maybe not really sure what his educational situation is like. But I like the idea, like if you want to play a high level of rugby right now, it's looking like MLR might be one of the better options to go to until, things get back to normal post COVID. One thing though, Dan, that I kind of wanted to point out too, and you kind of mentioned it a little bit, was you made a comment on his highlight reel, which is a thing that is very easily accessible. If you Google Henry Stevenson rugby, it's like one of the first things that pop up, and it's just like players that kind of want to be in the draft or they want to be signed by teams. It's like, I just think, take it upon yourself and put some video of your game out there. I know obviously like Rugby Ontario game against Old Glory DC, that was filmed and that was, a broadcast on, I can't remember which platform that was actually broadcast on, but you can watch that live. So there's the video of that out there. It's like, and, he's a guy that, he declared for the draft or however MLR is wording it for what the Canadians actually did to declare their intent and stuff. But it's like, yeah, like have a highlight reel, like be able to send something to coaches of the MLR teams to be like, hey man, this is what we can do. And, it goes to what we were saying kind of before too, where it's like, don't necessarily want the Canadian players to always be relying on the Toronto Arrows to get spots, right? So it's like, yeah, man, Paul Cialini, Mike Shepard are on the Arrows, like Adrian Wadden just signed there too. It's like that could be, and Colby Francis, like could be a tough team to make, but you have an expansion team. You have 2 expansion teams, so it's like they could maybe use your services and stuff. So it's good to see Stevenson making the most of an opportunity here. So
kids, make those reels, make them good, and don't put horrible music over it, and people will like it. And
no Star wipes.
No
Star Wars wipes. Yeah. I've heard most coaches watch them on mute anyways.
That's fair.
Yeah. So like you don't even have to, save yourself some time. You don't even have to put music on it.
So, guys, we just kind of dove into one of the American teams, and, this period in which we kind of took a little bit of time off, teams have been busy. Rooney has signed 10 players. OG DC, Old Glory, signed 4, excluding Fraser. New England signed 3. Rugby ATL signed 5. San Diego signed Dean Muir and Nate Osberger, 2 big pieces of their lineup. The Sabercats signed their founding 5. I think that's what they called it on Twitter. Someone might have to
the original 5.
The original 5.
The original 5.
Something like that. Esdale, Farmer, Garber, Pangilinan, and of course Sam Windsor. And they also made a trade, and they got Erasmus from their Texas friends for a little bit of cash. So, which one of these teams really to you has kind of jumped off and said, hey, we are making our team better and we are coming at you?
I'm going to go with Houston on this one because they have done a 5-player re-signing, which, the Arrows have been doing for the past month and a half or with all their signings. So I think it works well like that. And it's good to see. It's good to have that familiarity and, as you said, Derek, build the brand that the Arrows are doing with their re-signings. The thing that I want to point out is I don't see LA in this list. I don't see LA making any decisions of who their players are or making a public announcement of who they are. So I'm interested to see what that, or if they will make any public signings, because from what we've got so far, it's all been the players themselves announcing it, which isn't really the same thing. So I know we brought it up last episode, but I expect more from LA at this point, especially when Dallas is making signings at this period.
So Dan, is this Rugby ATL's new logo? Is this what we're looking at here?
Yeah, so that I just showed the guys on our screen. It looks like Rugby ATL is announcing a new logo, and they're doing a live video about it. And I didn't want to throw over the audio of it, so I'm gonna try and pull it up again. Maybe they'll put it back on their Instagram.
Yeah, I was gonna say like the announcement. Yeah, it looks
like a
snake head or something.
It's a rattlesnake for sure. It doesn't look like they're changing names. They're sticking with Rugby ATL, but they're sticking with the rattlesnake, which was kind of a fan moniker thing, and I think that's really cool that they've kind of turned that into their fan thing. And I know when they opened up their brick and mortar apparel store, they had a painting of the rattlesnake on it. And while you guys were kind of talking about your feelings and the teams and stuff like that, I was kind of listening in, and one of the players from the team actually designed the logo. Which is really, really cool because I guess he's also a graphic designer.
Who did it?
I'd have to check the live story again, but it was Chase Lewinsky was, and the other player I'd have to confirm what his name was. But it looks good, and I prefer to see them go a full change, and and not go Rugby ATL anymore, but.
Find a picture of the logo so we could pull it up later, and then we'll give it a little review at the end when we get through some of these.
They haven't loaded anything up other than that video, so
I'm sure if we give it 10 minutes, there will be pictures of it somewhere.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to point out that would be kind of awkward to mention while they were doing that discussion is that the countertop that they were around whilst discussing the new logo had the current ATL logo, so that countertop is immediately out of date.
Yeah, I noticed all the players were wearing the old logo on their shirts there too. But yeah, Dan, I didn't really get the chance to see it super clearly, so pull that up and we can give it a little review at the end here. But as for like one of the teams that I think is doing a great job right now is Rugby United New York. And like I said, it's like they've just one, I kind of like the way that they've been rolling out their signings. I think the idea of releasing players signings at the same time every day, during the week, 3 o'clock, for fans of Rugby United New York, I mean, it gives them something to look forward to. It's a fun way to kind of roll it out. We've seen, all the different teams kind of seem to be going about it a little bit differently. The Toronto Arrows, drop 5 guys every week or so. Then you have a handful of teams that just kind of are like sporadically announcing guys individually, or maybe 2 or 3 at a time. But I do kind of like Rooney's approach here, just from a marketing standpoint of being like, a new player is coming out at 3 o'clock. So that's a lot of fun, but it's like they've been signing some big names. Obviously guys like Will Leonard, Connor Wallace-Sims, Hanko Germashais, James Rochford, Troy Locklear, Harry Bennett. Those are all guys that are returning to the squad. So it's good to see that a lot of their core is coming back. But then you also have, a couple of great new signings too, like Joel Miranda, the Argentinian winger, Wilton Raballo, who we all remember from helping Brazil destroy Canada in that game. As a prop, Connor McManus, we got another New Zealander scrum half, and Samu Tueki, the Fijian prop that played with the Manitoba Turbos in the Mitre 10 Cup. So I like what they're doing, man. They're bringing a lot back, and I think too, like with the signing of Tuoaki and Robolo, I think they're also kind of addressing like a need in like doing some of these bigger signings. And obviously too, if we kind of look back, they've already signed some great players, but just in kind of this group, like Rooney's scrum last year was at 86.3%, which was 8th in Major League Rugby. They, so it's like 8th in Major League Rugby. Obviously, that translates going backwards to the 5th most the 5th most losses in the league. And but yeah, I think so obviously that's something that a team that would like to think of themselves and would consider themselves into, as one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference, it's probably something they would like to improve on. So seeing them bring in 2 props to kind of add to that really, to me, is, it's something that they need. It's something that the team needs to work on, and it's good to see that they're addressing that.
Yeah, I'm really excited for what New England's doing. And then, they've only signed 3 guys, but they all kind of excite me in different reasons. I mean, Tog Leader is kind of an OG MLR guy. He's played for, 3 different teams, but I remember, the first season when he was playing for San Diego, fiery ginger wearing those red jerseys. It was quite a sight to see. And I've kind of
I think it was just sunburn more than anything.
Poor guy.
I can say that because I'm a ginger. So.
But you know what? And he's done a lot.
And people know that now because they can see you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They can confirm it. Yeah.
But and I like what he's been doing with the youth academies and programs in Boston and New England. So that's been really cool. And Dougie Fife is really, really interesting to me because when I got Rugby 20 and I started my own build a franchise and got a bunch of random guys. I had no idea who any of them were. One of the guys was Dougie Fife, and he was like my top try scorer as I was rising the ranks. So I'll always have a soft spot for him, and now it's actually exciting. I get to watch him, and I have the chance to watch him live. And then Timbo coming from Super Rugby is just an amazing grab for them. He'll be a really fun guy to watch and see, kind of compare the talent level between Super Rugby and the Currie Cup and MLR. So. And also, they got a new coach. Ryan Martin seems to have a lot of experience, especially overseas. So I'm excited to see what he can bring to New England. So,
yeah, I think it's interesting, like overall, to kind of see like just the caliber of international talent that is making its way over to MLR now. I think having guys last year like the Beast or Nanu or Bastero come over really, to me, like kind of really showed a lot of players globally how great this league is, and that it's, it'll be a great league to play in. And obviously Matembu, like he's a former teammate of the Beast with the Sharks as well, right? So it's like there could be that connection there to be like, yeah, come over, it's awesome playing in North America. We've even seen it too, like a little bit with the Toronto Arrows, right? Like you have in year one, we have a couple South American guys, the Uruguayans and Leves and Mires. And then, we added Diana comes up from Uruguay. And then you also have De La Vega from Argentina joins the team in 2020. And now 2021 comes and you see a bunch of De La Vega's countrymen and Gaston Cortez, Juan Cruz Gonzalez, and Manuel Montero are now joining the team too, right? So it's like word of mouth, like in that global rugby community gets around. So it's like if guys are around the globe are starting to realize it's like, yeah, like the MLR is a great place to play. It's just going to constantly attract better talent, and attracting better talent in turn is going to make the North American talent in our league a lot better.
So, gentlemen, I was cruising the World Wide Webs, and Rugby ATL, after posting that video, has been silent. However, once again, Brian Ray to the rescue. He shared this photo of one of the things they kind of showed on their little slideshow. It has the logo that they're going with on one of their merchandise hats. And again, he's kind of questioning the same thing I kind of said about, are we going to keep, why are we keeping Rugby ATL? What do you guys think about the logo? We'll kind of start with that because it is unique, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's a phenomenal logo and something really beneficial that can be used by Atlanta to build a brand, because I think just having ATL isn't really that marketable, but having the image of like a snake, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it is a rattlesnake. My knowledge of snakes is minimal at best, being British as all.
Not a whole lot of snakes in Britain there.
No, well, you see, they all went to Ireland and then St. Patrick.
Yeah, he sent them back, didn't he?
Sent them to Atlanta, apparently. But yeah, as I say, it's that they have a new logo, but they're keeping the team name the same as Rugby Atlanta. And you think you should go the full hog and just call yourself the Rattlesnakes at this point.
Yeah, I think the logo kind of looks like that. Almost kind of looks like say like a Jacksonville Jaguars, kind of Carolina Panthers, sort of the side profile of a animal's head. It's cool. It's
or
got
the Dallas Jackals.
Well, I mean, like the specific kind of like the open mouth and like sort of the snarling teeth and everything. Yeah, I like it. I think if we were kind of going with I'm not sure. You know what? I'm looking at it though. I'm not sure I like it better than the A. Like even in seeing it, like just because. Can you go back to the logo, Dan? I know what the Dallas Jackals logo looks like.
All right. Well, I'm just showing you. It's a side profile, and
it is a side profile, but it's like the kind of arching down, and like maybe it's just because it's black. I was like Carolina Panthers kind of, because that's also like a giant black logo. I don't know, but yeah, like I'm not. Yeah, like I kind of almost. I really like the A, man, and you know what I really like. Is that like snakeskin kind of A wallpaper that they had, which kind of like, are they still using this? Like, do we know enough info about it? Like, I guess for like an initial reaction that we're kind of doing here, but I do like that A, and it's like I found it interesting that it's like they kind of got rid of Rugby ATL from the top of it on a couple of things. On Twitter, they put back like new profile pic, and it was just the A. Was one, I like the design of the A. I think it kind of pops on the jerseys. Is this like, do we know if this is like a secondary logo kind of thing, or is it like the primary
in the video, the Facebook Live, they kind of made it, they said that this would be the new logo. They're talking about moving on and adapting and creating a brand. So it sounds like this rattlesnake will be the new logo.
Well, that's cool then. Like, I mean, I love the idea that the players designed the logo. That sounds awesome. Like, I'm sure that, a lot of like new, like older teams, right? It's like you kind of play for like the tradition that the badge represents. And, MLR being a brand new league, it doesn't necessarily have like the years of tradition. It's not like any of the players in the league, can claim that they grew up wanting to be playing for Rugby ATL or play for the Toronto Arrows or the Houston Sabercats or whoever, because it's like those teams are only, max 4 years old. So, I think if you kind of give the players a hand in designing like the actual logo that they're going to be playing for, that's a cool way to kind of build up some more pride in that logo. I still do like the A. I like the simplicity of the A. There's a lot of design elements inside that snake, which are cool. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, I hope they still use the A for something. It's one of those things that kind of looks really good on a hat or other types of merchandise. So I wouldn't want this necessarily seem to get away. I am confused as to why like Rugby ATL is not a good name. So I hope they were kind of leaning to like change, like do like the rattlesnakes or do the rattlers or something to that effect instead. But like I said, initial reaction, maybe we'll find out more after we record this and stuff. But yeah, like I would like to see them kind of, I agree with Stu, like go kind of full out, because Rugby ATL still kind of sounds like a little placeholder-ish to me. Like it'd be weird, like it doesn't, like hockey TOR wouldn't fly as a good name, or like football DAL, like
or
baseball
the Washington
NY,
Washington football team, or the Edmonton football team. EE football.
But you know what though? But those
have different reasons.
Those are placeholders for completely different reasons. But they're not bad
for sure.
placeholders. If you want to kind of go to that, even like I said, like before.
If you guys have actually seen the jerseys, like the Washington football team's jerseys, like they're actually pretty slick, and it's got like a W on their helmet. It's pretty sharp in my opinion.
I haven't actually seen those. Maybe they just stick with that then. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's cool. It's nice to see. It's nice to see the teams, I guess, taking it seriously and being like, you know what, like, hey, the fans are coming up with this kind of, they've given us this rattlesnake kind of nickname. So why don't we roll with that and incorporate an actual snake logo into our own team's branding and stuff. So it's good to see that the ownership group there is adapting to what the fans have been creating. So that's kind of the thing I think that's the thing that I like the most about the logo. I like I still like the A though. I don't know. There's something about it that I'm still kind of like leaning toward the A, but I like the entire concept and the idea behind the snakehead logo.
I'm almost with you a little bit, Derek, on that. I like the idea of the A. I think that there is a place for the A. Maybe like it's like a shoulder crest, or like on their shorts. That'd be really cool if they had the A there. Like I think there is a place for it, but to me the A just reminds me of Rugby ATL, and I think that there's time to move on. I think you can, and Stu said it, you can brand the snake, and it'll be a lot of fun. And if they could combine that snake skin background with the actual snake on both like a white and like even someone said a red jersey for Atlanta, that'd be really sharp. So or like I said, yellow and red and yellow, like the Hawks, that would be really sharp. The
Hawks look good. The Hawks new jerseys look great too. But I liked when we were talking before this podcast, was it you or Stu that mentioned like do the snake scales as like a sublimated image like on the jersey? Like kind of like, so how you would have it like that really cool, like I was saying, that really cool like A snakeskin wallpaper or whatever. If you had that A like on the jersey or whatever, you could do that with the snakeskin like behind it, which would probably look cool. They did have the map of Atlanta sublimated on their jerseys last year, which is also a really cool idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think so. It's like there's definitely some design features and elements that you can kind of incorporate that. I think doing the sublimated scales thing, like we were kind of talking about earlier, might be a lot of fun.
Just do something different, because we had them, Old Glory DC, and the Free Jacks that all kind of had a similar color palette. Mm-hmm. Those dark colors and whites, and we just need someone to pop out a little bit more. So that'll be interesting to see, when Paladin releases the kits and how they all look like. Guys, I think this will be time when we finish up. If you guys are looking for more information on our podcast or our thoughts and everything, we have on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, we have Rouge Rugby updates about the podcast, and we post things, kind of trying to get discussions going about Canadian rugby. Gentlemen, if they want to learn more or read more or watch more from you two, where can they get it?
Well, you can find me mainly on Twitter. My @ is Hardman, spelled H4RDMAN.
Yeah, and you can find me Twitter, Instagram at Brissette the Jet, BRESSETTE, the Jet. You can also find any articles that I write at Layman Sports on Twitter, Instagram, and obviously laymansports.com, and any of your other favorite social media networks.
And I don't really do much more than this, so unless you guys want to hear me talk about being a stay-at-home dad until September or Dungeons and Dragons,
or if you want leaf updates 36 hours late, Dan's your guy.
I'm your guy. I can take care of that.
Yeah, exactly. So if you want to know who wins Game 5 tonight, because I'm kind of assuming that Dan was like, "Hey boys, can we push up the time that we record this podcast?" It kind of had something to do with the fact that he just got a new lease on life, realizing that the Leafs are playing tonight. But if you want to know, if you are like somebody that likes to avoid spoilers for all things, give Dan a follow, because he'll start talking about the events of this Leafs game on like Wednesday. So
Exactly.
that's the way to go.
And you know what, guys? More exciting rugby news is that the Premiership will be starting back up this weekend. Who are you guys looking forward to watch?
I think that we should all enjoy the Saracens for the brief time they're still in the Premiership. Obviously, there's the Great Midlands teams of the Wasps and Tigers. How long Tigers will be in the Premiership? Well, definitely longer than Saracens at the moment. But no, it should be interesting. I'm sure you guys may have read about Exeter deciding to drop their mascot but keep their logo and name.
Speaking of not going all the way with a name and logo change.
Oh, man. So that was disappointing to hear, but no, it should be. And we're also going to get midweek games as well with the Premiership for the rest of this season, at least.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of with Stu. I enjoy chaos. I want to see Saracens ruin some people's days. It's 2020. Everybody's year sucks. So I mean, you kind of have to. Maybe I don't even think it's not even that I want to see Saracens necessarily win, but it's like, man, with the way 2020 has gone, you kind of know that they probably will, just to ruin it for everybody, and we'll have. I guess, a Premiership champion that gets relegated. Even if they decide to relegate, I don't even know if they're still going to do that. Who knows? But yeah, I like chaos. Chaos is also probably dictating that the Saracens are going to win the Champions Cup too. First, just to wreck everyone's day. The Crusaders still won Super Rugby, so. It's
there is some normalcy in rugby.
Yeah, there's some normalcy. Yeah, exactly. I feel kind of bad for the Chiefs though, just because it's they don't go what are they 0-8? That doesn't happen if there's other countries participating in Super Rugby.
Yeah, well.
Even some of their games this year, they had the games and it just slipped them.
Shouldn't have let Tyler Ardron go.
Yeah. I'm new to the Premiership. My introduction to professional rugby was the Pro 14 because of DTH, and the Irish teams because of my lineage. So I'm still kind of dipping my toes into the Premiership, but I think I'm throwing my weight behind Bristol and the Irish. I think I'm excited to see. I was really sad not to see what Ross Neal could have offered us in MLR. So. To hear that he's coming back.
He's playing again, yeah.
Yeah, so to see him back with the Irish, and then also to find out that he will be coming back to the Sea Wolves is exciting news. So I'm throwing my weight behind Bristol just because I think that they'll be a fun team to watch. Not win, but it'll be fun. And and the Irish just because.
My dad's buddy is from Northampton, so that's all. I have a Northampton Saints jersey, so that's the only reason why I have some loyalty toward that side. So that would be cool. And then I could just wear my Saints jersey on this podcast if they win to celebrate. I don't have any gear from any of the other Premiership teams, so
I was gonna buy myself a jersey, but then Derek convinced me to wait for the Macron kit, and then
I didn't convince you.
COVID
That was your
hit.
like brother or something, wasn't it?
No,
It
they
was
were
like
buying.
spend all
was
the
a-
money on every jersey you possibly can.
No, and but then I ended up just buying myself a nerdy D&D shirt, so that's not happening until at least Christmas. So.
I mean, I have an Ospreys shirt, but less said about them, the better.
All right, well, guys, thank you very much, and thank you, folks, for listening. And go Leafs, go!